we need to talk about Superman. Mostly about how it was really, really good. Someone needs to send The Rock an edible arrangement because the hierarchy of power in the DC universe actually did change, and thank God it did. Hi folks, I'm Dan Casey, welcome back to Nerdist News. Reports of my death greatly exaggerated. I was in a pocket dimension. And today we're going to talk about the brand new Superman movie, written and directed by DC Studios co-CEO James Gunn. It's now in theaters, and spoiler alert, it's really good.
Thank you so much.
There was so much weight placed on this movie, it would be turning Giles Corey into a fine red mist, a Puritan Jackson Pollock. Case in point, the Wall Street Journal referred to this Superman reboot as Warner Brothers' last best hope to revitalize DC. Yikes. And you know what? That's fair, because the DC Extended Universe didn't exactly ride off into the sunset. It ended with neither a bang nor a whimper, but with a perfect visual metaphor for how that entire experiment felt. Thankfully, James Gunn, David Corenswet, and the amazing cast and crew behind Superman shouldered the crushing weight of expectation with aplomb. The Man of Steel leaped tall buildings and tall expectations in a single bound, earning more than $217 million worldwide against a reported $225 million production budget. In an era where superhero fatigue feels increasingly real at the box office, especially compared to the heyday of Marvel's Infinity Saga, that's an impressive feat. But far more important than generating shareholder value for the brothers Warner, this was just a good movie. It was an auspicious kickoff for the DCU, and now we need to talk about it. Not about the Easter eggs, of which there are many. Not about the mid and post-credit scenes, of which there are two, and definitely not about what could happen in a rumored Jimmy Olsen TV show, which, okay, actually, we probably should talk about that, but not right now. But did you guys know that Darkseid was introduced in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen 134? It's crazy. It's crazy, but I digress. I need to talk about Superman because this movie, I had more than I care to admit emotionally invested in this being a good movie. And I say that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I have to cover this stuff for a living, or rather, I should say, I get to cover this stuff for a living. I'm aware it's an awesome privilege, and I'm so happy to be doing this professionally. But as you may have experienced over the past decade or so, from say the release of Man of Steel onward until fairly recently, the discourse online took a turn for the toxic. Whether or not you actually enjoyed any given film, it was kind of a nightmare to talk about it. And for me, while the DCEU did many things right, it ultimately didn't stick the landing for my preferred vision of a DC Comics universe. Save Martha! And if you spend any amount of time on social media at all, which I spend a terminal amount, the lead up to this movie kind of felt like Lex Luthor's room of extra-dimensional monkey trolls. People were looking for literally any reason at all to gin up controversy. Doesn't matter if it was the best or blurst of times. But here we are, standing at the precipice of a brand new era of DC Comics storytelling, and supposedly, third time's the charm, it'll be a unified vision in a way we haven't seen previously. DC's in the unenviable position of trying to make up ground. They're basically trying to catch up on roughly 20 years of MCU storytelling and $32 billion in box office receipts. WB and DC are on what feels like their third attempt since Tony Stark built the MCU in a cave with a box of scraps back in sorry. The devil possessed me. Since Tony Stark built the MCU in a cave with a box of scraps back in 2008. To accomplish this seemingly superhuman task, real-world Lex Luthor David Zaslav tasked James Gunn and Peter Safran with stewarding this new era of superhero storytelling. And while the adult animated Creature Commando series is the technical start of the DCU, Superman is the true start for like 99.9% of people. And I've got to say, it's a hell of a start. Superman really hit all the right notes for me. And look, it's not a perfect movie, but I loved it. It's character-driven, it feels simultaneously expansive and contained. David Corenswet, that dude has the sauce. He's the exact combination of what I want to see in both Clark Kent and Superman. Rachel Brosnahan, maybe my favorite Lois Lane of all time. Nicholas Hoult, reliably excellent as both the hairiest and baldest characters in comic book cinema. He can do it all. What really elevated the film from good to great for me was the supporting cast. From the Daily Planet bullpen to the Justice Gang, these characters make the DCU feel vibrant and lived in. They give texture to Superman's story. And I have to say, the biggest standout, I'm so happy about this, Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific. I am a die-hard Mr. Terrific fan, and especially the portrayal in the early 2000s JSA comics, this movie feels like it was made for me in a lab. Superman, and James Gunn's initial vision of the DCU, feels immersed in an era that I love. There's this mixture of Silver Age sensibilities in All-Star Superman, but there's also a lot of vindication for Justice League International truthers like myself. There are dozens of us. Now, all of this gushing is to say, I think they did a really fantastic fantastic job here. And they also smartly avoided some of the biggest mistakes that I perceive in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, particularly as of late. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot riding on this movie. According to the Wall Street Journal, Superman needs to make more than $500 million worldwide to be considered a success by the studio. But at the same time, if it doesn't hit $1 billion at the box office, you're gonna have all these armchair pundits hitting it with 1A, 1A, 1A. So narratively, financially, in every sense of the word, Superman needs to be Iron Man for the DCU, but they're doing a couple things differently now. Number one, they're pretty smartly eschewing the tendency of many former superhero movies to rehash origin stories. We get it, he's Superman. And yes, there's a lot of expo in this movie, exposition if you're nasty. I don't know why I shortened it, like I work in a restaurant on The Bear. Now, according to IO9's interview with James Gunn, that was partially inspired by Star Wars, that initial table setting followed by the exposition dump at the Fortress of Solitude. And that works because it's all done contextually in a way that feels honest to the film and the story it's telling. Meanwhile, I think about Captain America Brave New World in that insane opening newscast, which was the most preposterous expo dump I've seen in not just a superhero movie, but any movie in recent memory.
Dr. Betty Ross, Bruce Banner's ex-girlfriend.
What are we doing here, folks? But I digress. I'm digressing a lot, but just bear with me. What Superman does so well is that it feels self-contained, and I say this because one of the biggest and most common complaints about the MCU over the recent years is that for some people, it feels like homework, especially as the scope of the MCU creeps wider and wider. What was once a new and novel prospect and ever-expanding interconnected storyline is now collapsing under its own weight. It's what happens with comics every couple of decades or so, but about 1 billion times more expensive. Now, if you miss one thing in the MCU, it has a cascade effect. Like, if you didn't watch Ironheart, how would you know that I was completely vindicated after 5 years of frantic theorizing? Told you. A perfect example is something like The Marvels. That was emblematic of a few of the MCU's biggest issues. The Marvels was a movie that was not set up for success despite having a fantastic cast of people and following on the heels of a billion with a B dollar grossing movie. So where did that movie fall flat? Well, first, for the average moviegoer, it felt like you had to do so much advanced prep work to understand even the basics. If you didn't watch WandaVision or Ms. Marvel, which are both fantastic shows I enjoyed very much, you wouldn't know 2 of the 3 leads, all of whom are being positioned with equal importance to Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. So is that a fatal flaw? No, you can glean details contextually, you're a smart person, and they do a good job of setting the stage there, but the bigger issue is that The Marvels feels incomplete. It felt like a fragment of a sentence, something that only existed to set up the next multiversal event, knocking over the next domino, rather than telling a story that stands on its own. And now, I understand the ethos of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is to create stories and films and television shows that stand on their own. They feel self-contained, but build towards something bigger. The Marvels didn't do that. Captain America Brave New World absolutely did not do that.
Bruce Banner's ex-girlfriend.
You know what recent Marvel movie did that very well? Thunderbolts. It was a perfect example of a movie in which you might not have known all the characters beforehand. You might not have seen all the projects that these characters were in, but you didn't need to. All you need to know is these guys are kind of misfits, they kind of look like pale imitations of the Avengers, like Kirkland Avengers, and you can clock that visually right off the bat, and that's all you need. Most audiences didn't know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were before that movie, but it didn't matter, because Thunderbolts, like Guardians, was character-driven. And yes, it does pay off some plot threads that have been long simmering. We know who owns Avengers Tower. It's Val. And it does set up some things for the future, but not at the expense of the story it's telling. And that's what Superman did so well for me. Superman set the stage for the DCU in a pretty great way. And yes, I've seen people saying that it's overstuffed. I can appreciate that sentiment. James Gunn drops a metric ton of characters on the audience, but with good reason. This is a movie that takes place in a world not where superheroes are emerging, but where they've been a fact of life for over 300 years. Superman's been active for 3 years. He is a known quantity to the people of Metropolis. This cavalcade of metahumans is in service of reinforcing an idea that superheroes are everywhere. However, as we see with the Justice Gang, they're corporatized entities more concerned with efficiency than preventing casualties. How soon can we get to lunch, guys? The people of this world are looking for hope in a hopeless place. But instead of finding Rihanna because she's busy starring in the Smurfs, they find that in The Last Son of Krypton. Does that play or is that f***ing stupid? Now, what this movie does particularly well is put the focus on the characters and their relationships amid these bigger world-building strokes. You have this core dynamic between Superman and Clark Kent, two halves of a whole, neither quite feeling like they belong. Superman constantly wrestles with feeling like he's not enough and isn't living up to the expectations placed upon him. Having those expectations completely subverted by unexpected revelations, trying to navigate responsibly using his godlike powers with the civilian life as Clark Kent, trying to navigate a romantic life together with Lois Lane, who, by the way, caught in her own infinite crisis between always chasing the next story and letting herself be vulnerable with this invulnerable being. It all is in service of painting a rich picture of who Clark is, who Superman is, and why you should care. It grounds us in reality. And it also neatly contrasts with the dynamic between a superhuman searching for his humanity and the human who's covetous of the superhuman. Nicholas Holt's portrayal of Lex Luthor is just pitch perfect, as this billionaire full of impotent rage. His pathological lust for the one thing he can't have leads him down a path of death, destruction, and political machination. It remains elusive no matter how many extra-dimensional prisons he builds, proxy wars he wages to strip mine foreign lands, or ill-advised genetic experiments that he conducts. Or Geneva Conventions he violates. He's a bad guy. As many pointed out, Gunn's storytelling here feels oddly prescient and very of the moment. But it also really gets to the core of these characters without getting so caught up in teeing up the next project. These aren't just Easter eggs for the sake of Easter eggs. They're world building, texture for the DCU to make it clear that once this fresh sheet of snow melts, there are branching paths that you can follow. But those paths aren't the point. They're incidental. And yes, they do set up some things that are going to pay off pretty immediately, like Millie Alcock's appearance as Kara Zor-El, teasing the upcoming Supergirl movie. But also, what's going on with the Justice Gang? Is that maybe going to become like the Justice League or maybe the Justice Society? That's a pretty big haul, pretty cool mural there. Guy Gardner mentioned the Green Lantern Corps. Who else could we see beyond Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart in the Lantern series? We saw a sign for Gotham City. We know we're going to go there, maybe on the highway, who knows? We're going to see the Batman in one or more forms, depending on how many Batman movies are actually coming out. I mean, we've got Clayface, the Batman 2, maybe The Brave and the Bold, who knows? There might be 17 more, only time will tell. And we have so many opportunities to expand this universe. We see things like Stag Industries. We introduced Metamorpho himself, Rex Mason, in this movie. So many threads are dangled, but they don't distract from the core story. And so many MCU projects, and I say this as part of the problem from the videos we make, the story itself can feel incidental, ending in an ellipsis to get us to the next big event rather than a period or exclamation point. They don't feel self-contained, they feel like a thought that's incomplete, a dangling modifier. And if you know one thing about modifiers, they should never dangle. And all of that makes me really appreciate what James Gunn had to say in Nerdist interview with Hector Navarro about his approach to serialized storytelling. What inspired Gunn the most in his approach to the DCU were standalone graphic novels from DC, like The Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, The Long Halloween, and like these graphic novels, Gunn wants these movies to feel incredibly different from one another, but still feel connected to the wider DC universe. Because there is and will be an overarching story, and so far the DCU has delivered on the promise made by its title, Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters.
Thank you so much.
I saw both of those in Superman, and it sparked a curiosity for how they're going to expand on that idea and that title in future projects. Now, another big way in which Superman distinguished itself from recent MCU fare is that it acknowledges how comic booky it is without being cynical about it. And that's the Silver Age sensibility that this movie and what hopefully Fantastic Four are wearing on their sleeve. I've talked to a bunch of people about this, and especially Nerdist own Kyle Anderson, who kind of bristle at how Marvel sometimes feels like it's embarrassed by its own source material.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wait, no, seriously, what's your actual name?
Or conversely, with something like Deadpool and Wolverine, they get so meta about what they're doing and quip things to death, it can rob the end result of emotion. A little self-deprecation and self-awareness is all well and good, but there's no reason to be ashamed of these spandex-clad sagas we're bringing to life.
Do you actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
Comic book movies, and superhero movies in particular, are basically the global pop cultural monoculture, and they have been for well over a decade. Stop being embarrassed. You're mainstream. Don't be embarrassed. In 2028, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to be 20 years old. That's bonkers. And while the MCU is heading towards hitting the reset button to free themselves from the shackles of canon and actors tiring of certain roles, Thor, the DCU is just getting started. The earnestness of Superman makes the DCU feel like a breath of superpowered fresh air. And so far, I really like the shape of things to come. I really like the world they're constructing, the characters they're populating this universe with. And let's be real, this is a different animal than the MCU in certain ways. Because before 2008's Iron Man, before the Avengers, there was no universe in which you could say with a straight face Iron Man and Captain America are on the same plane of cultural relevance and importance as Superman and Batman. Superman is one of those characters that transcends language. You don't need to have read a comic or seen a movie to know who he is. He's one of those indelible characters that everybody knows. And getting him right has been such a challenge. Very few people have really nailed the essence of what makes Clark Kent and what makes Superman Superman. There have been some obvious standouts like Christopher Reeve, incredible Superman. Tyler Hoechlin on Superman and Lois, amazing job. And there are aspects of Cavill's performance and Brandon Routh's performance that really transcend and bring this character to life to make you believe a man can fly. That was the tagline for Superman the movie. James Gunn's Superman is a movie that makes you believe a man can fly. This is a movie that makes you want to suspend your disbelief and embrace the impossible, because there's an earnestness to it that feels so refreshing because we live in this sea of cynicism. You're constantly taking psychic damage from every single thing you do, every time you open your phone or read a news article or just walk through the world. Things are pretty bad. It's definitely holding up kind of a mirror in a sense to where we are culturally. It's something we need to hold on to. We need a sense of hope. There's such a pervasive undercurrent lately of this seeming violent delight at the suffering of others. You wade into any comment section or political discourse and it just breaks your spirit in half. Because like Thomas and Martha Wayne, nuance died a long time ago. Trying to have a nuanced conversation online is like yelling the word nuance into a wind tunnel. Yeah, you can shout, but it's gonna get lost in the noise. It's a very polarizing environment that favors extremes. And right now the pendulum is swung towards a level of cultural cruelty that is truly depressing. And that's where comic books and comic book movies can help. Superhero stories like Superman, to me, are American mythology. It's something that can give us hope, something that can inspire. And for me, a movie like Superman really struck that chord. I really appreciated the heart and the humor that suffused every moment of it. And yes, I understand, like I said, not a perfect movie. I'm not claiming that. You're 1,000,000,000% within your rights to dislike this movie with every fiber of your being. I have a very good friend I saw this week. He hated it. And you know what? I appreciate the points he raised, but for me, it just got me. It hit me where it counted. My heart. Because this movie gets something right about Superman stories. It feels hopeful even when things feel hopeless. And that's something I think we really, really need right now. Very few movies are perfect, Muppet Christmas Carol. This is a movie that I loved in spite of its imperfections. This is a movie that made me excited to be a DC fan again. It reminded me what I love about this world and these characters. And let me be clear, that's not a mistake that Marvel's been making. I love those characters and have for a long time. They're really great at making you care about them. But it does feel like they're losing the plot a little bit, and I hope they course correct with Fantastic Four.
Ex-girlfriend.
But as Marvel tries to hurtle towards this big ending in Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars, I really look forward to being proved wrong and hope they hit those same notes. If they can capture the heart and humor of Thunderbolts, if Fantastic Four can stick the landing, I'll feel a lot more excited as we head into the MCU's proverbial endgame. Now, as for the DCU, I understand there's probably going to be some clunkers in there, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the future, and after covering these films professionally for 13 years, after being a comic book fan my entire life, ever since I discovered my dad's collection in my basement like this Library of Alexandria, I am just so excited about the possibilities ahead. I love these characters, and I want to hear good stories about them on stage, screen, TV, you name it, and it makes me so happy when they're done well. And I think this was done very well. But tell me, folks, what do you think? What did you think of Superman? What do you hope to see from the DCU moving forward? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to go deeper into the world of DC and all things pop culture, check out Laser Focus, our weekly podcast hosted by Kyle Anderson. It takes you deep inside your favorite fandoms and beyond, and he has some big thoughts on this movie. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for watching, and remember, for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, make sure you stay tuned to Nerdist.com.